Yes, Advocate Senior.
Chairperson, Madam Commissioner, things are not working at the speed one would hope for, but perhaps to announce that we're back into the default position, the proceedings are open for anybody or to everybody.
Thank you.
What I do have are files before you, Chairperson, Madam Commissioner. The files contain statements of victims. These are statements that were obtained, commissioned, as I will read them. We have not been able to date to trace these witnesses again, but as we said, we want to try as best we can to put voice to all the victims of the building. And this exercise is to achieve that purpose.
Yes.
You will see before you a witness statement of Lindo Kuhle Mtolo, which would be the first statement that I propose with your leave to read out. It says, I'm an adult male South African citizen, originally from Mzimkhulu, Ikopo, KwaZulu-Natal province. I started residing at Usindiso building, located at number 80 Albert Street, corner Delver Street, Marshalltown, Johannesburg, the building in parentheses, around March 2022. I currently reside at the temporary shelter at Wembley. On arrival in Johannesburg, I inquired from various people about possible accommodation that I would acquire. I was told to try Usindiso building. I met one gentleman who said he could provide me with an accommodation at a rental of 800 Rand per month. I took up the accommodation and paid rental of 800 Rand per month for a period of approximately 1 year. I stopped paying rent in approximately November of 2022. I took occupation on the ground floor of the building. I lived on the section of the building that was occupied by the clinic. This is the section that was not affected by the fire during the night of 31 August 2023. On the night of the fire, there was load shedding and the area was dark. Around 0100, I was in my room with a friend from my hometown in KwaZulu-Natal. He was living in the room adjacent to my room in the building. We heard people shouting and screaming that there was a fire. On opening the door, we could see people rushing out and others with their belongings. We could not take our belongings out of the room because of the smoke that was filling the corridors. We got out of the building and waited for what seemed to be a very long time before the arrival of the firefighters. I saw the fire, and from where we were standing, I did not observe any people jumping from the building. I slept outside of the building and left in the morning. When I got back later in the day, I found the area being attended to by members of the police and other security companies. The area was cordoned off by the police. The following day, Friday, 1 September 2023, a list was compiled of those affected by the fire and whose occupation was destroyed in the building. A bus arrived later to take some of us to the Bezuidenhout Valley temporary shelter. Some of us were moved from Bezuidenhout Valley shelter and moved to a temporary shelter in Hillbrow. After 2 or so days, some of us were moved to Wembley temporary shelter, where I am currently accommodated. The floor I occupied had more or less 30 rooms. My request to the Commission is that we be given accommodation that is safe. There is a waste dump a few meters away from the shelter where we are housed, and the stench from the dump is unbearable. I request we be assisted with obtaining our identity documents as promised previously by the Department of Home Affairs. We have still not been assisted. The statement is then signed by the deponent and properly commissioned. If there are no objections, I beg leave to have this as an exhibit, and because they are witness statements, we will initial WS1 as the first of the statements, if that can be admitted into evidence and it be referred to as a witness statement 1, Chairperson.
Witness statement 1 being the evidence of the affidavit of Lindokuhle Mtolo is admitted as evidence.
Thank you, Chairperson. The next statement I'm going into would be that of Mandlenkosi Bengu. If you have it in front of you, Chairperson. Madam
Yes, I do.
Commissioner, I propose to read it into the record. It says, I'm a major male South African citizen bearing identity document number, and the number is given there. I hail from Msinga, KwaZulu-Natal. I currently stay at Wembley Shelter in Taffontein, where I was placed by Emergency Medical Services. I provide this statement to account for my experience of the fire that engulfed the Usindiso building, Albert Street, corner Delva Street, Johannesburg, the building, on 31 August 2023. I'm currently unemployed. Before the incident, I manned a food and meat braaiing stall in Doornfontein. I lost all my tools and equipment because of the fire. I moved into the building in the winter of 2022. The building I was staying at before then was a Nyamandao, MNYAMANDAWO, like the current building, and was situated in Doornfontein. Upon hearing that the Doornfontein building would be closed, I searched for and found a room on the ground floor of the building and paid rent, 800 rand per month, to a man called Ngubani. My room was built with brick and mortar with a wooden door. I lived alone. To give an idea of the size of my room, I had one double bed, 2-door cupboard, a pot stand, and a 2-door wardrobe for my clothes. I cannot say how many occupants were on the floor I stayed in, but I can say that many people resided in the building. The building was accessible from outside through 3 gates, the main one facing Albert Street on the northern side, and the second one accessible from Makhoseni, the southern side, and the third one was facing Albert Street. I had an illegal connection because I did not buy any prepaid electricity. I obtained my water from a common tap for which I did not make any separate payment. I cannot comment much about criminal activities in the building because I left early in the morning around 600 hours and returned around 2300 hours. In the early hours of 31 August 2023, I was sleeping alone in my room. It was after 0100 hours when I heard voices screaming that the building was on fire. I heard the commotion in the corridor, opened the door, and in the corridor I saw and smelled the smoke as well as commotion caused by people leaving the building with some of their property. I went back to put my clothes on and take what belonged to me, and I could carry and exited the building through one of the exits facing Albert Street. As I stood outside, I noticed that the building was on fire, so much that I could not risk going back in. I also saw a lady on the 3rd floor open a window and throw her baby to the ground before jumping herself. Both the child and the lady were caught and saved. The firefighters took time to arrive. They only got to the scene after 200 hours. I'm concerned that I have lost a place to stay, my tools and equipment, and with no means to survive. As matters stand, on morning of 19 October 2023, we heard that we all will be removed from the shelters, while those at Bezade and Hout Valley will be evacuated on 9 October 2023. I wish to obtain a safe and reliable place to stay so I can work towards rebuilding my life, signed by the deponent and properly commissioned. With no objections, Chairperson, may this be admitted into evidence as Exhibit WS2.
WS2 is admitted as evidence being the affidavit of Mandlenkosi Bengu.
The next Chairperson, Madam Commissioner, you will find is a statement by Sfiso Njangase, who says, I'm a major male South African citizen bearing identity document number, and it is given
Come
there.
again, I think, or Sfiso Njangas.
Yes, Sfiso Njangase, Madam Chair. He gives his identity number there, and he says he hails from Nkandla, KwaZulu-Natal. I currently stay at Wembley Shelter in Tafontein, where I was placed by EMS. I provide this statement to account for my experience of the fire that engulfed the Usindiso building, Albert Street, Corner Delvas, Johannesburg, on 31 August 2023. Before the incident, I was a taxi driver ferrying passengers between Park Station to Eastgate Mall. I'm currently unemployed. I have not resumed my job as a taxi driver because of the after effects of the incident, specifically that I've had to interrupt work regularly to be available in response to calls for meetings and interactions by those assisting us and cooperating with the Commission. I moved in the building in 2021. My taxi driver colleagues introduced me to a man called Jovis, who offered me a room on the basement for 1,200 Rand a month. I paid rent when he showed up to collect it for the first 2 months. After that, Jovis disappeared and no one else collected rent from me. My room was built with brick and mortar with a wooden door. I lived with my partner. To give an idea of the size of my room, I had a double bed, a fridge, 2-door cupboard, a radio, and a television set. I cannot say how many occupants on the floor I stayed in, but I can say that many people resided in the building, most of whom were foreigners. The building was accessible from outside through 2 gates, the main one facing Albert Street on the northern side, and the second one accessible from Makhoseni. I had an illegal connection because I did not buy any prepaid electricity. I obtained my water from a tap on the ground floor, for which I did not make any separate payment. I cannot comment much about criminal activities in the building because I left early in the morning around 500 hours and returned around 2100 hours. On 31 August 2023, I returned from work to my room shortly after 2100 hours before I went to bed with my partner. Around midnight, I heard someone kicking my door and screaming that the building was on fire. My partner and I woke up. I opened the door and in the corridor saw a commotion of people evacuating the building. While I did not notice any smoke at the time, I saw the fire in other parts of the building through some of the windows. I exited the building through the main door leading to Albert Street, and I stood outside. I noticed that the first floor was on fire. I was dazed and sleepy. I felt like I was dreaming. Once I was out, I elected to stand far from the scene as I wanted to avoid the smoke, which I know to be dangerous. It took the firefighters about 30 minutes after I was out to arrive at the scene. I lost my valuables, including some of my savings, which I kept in my room. As my room did not burn, they were stolen the moment the fire was doused, and people were able to return to the building. My wish is to have a proper place to stay, as we were promised by those in charge to be accommodated urgently. Absent suitable accommodation, it appears our plight is no longer urgent. The surviving residents are accommodated at 3 different venues. Men stay at Wembley, Tafontein, women with children stay at Bas Valley, while those without children stay at Mess in GP. On October 18, 2023, I learned that by close of business that day, the women staying in Bezuidenhout Valley will be evicted. In the absence of an offer of alternative accommodation, I'm concerned about the safety and welfare of those people, some of whom are my relatives. In addition, it is concerning that since we are relocated, we have not heard from disaster management team and do not know what will happen to those who are still in hospital, signed by the deponent and duly commissioned. And with no objection, Madam Chair, may this be admitted into evidence as Exhibit WS3.
Exhibit WS3 is admitted into evidence in the affidavit of Sfiso Njangase.
I've got a little bit more of those, but I see we passed the lunch hour. Would it be convenient, Chairperson, to adjourn for lunch?
It will be convenient to adjourn and reconvene at 2 o'clock.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Advocate Sminya.
Thank you, Chairperson. Madam Commissioner, the next statement in the file that you will see is that of Muzi Ngubane. It is a commissioned statement as well, wherein Mr. Ngubane says, I'm a major male South African citizen bearing identity number, and it is stated there. I hail from Msinga, KwaZulu-Natal. I provide this statement to account for my experience of the fire that engulfed the Usindiso building, Albert Street, corner Delvas, Johannesburg, on 31 August 2023. I'm currently not employed, but was previously employed as a truck driver at Bidvest Food. I currently earn a living by running a meat braaiing stall at Mai. Before I moved to the building, I stayed with my family at Mai, where my children still stay. I was introduced to the building by my cousin. In December 2018, he went home to KwaZulu-Natal for the festive season break and requested me to look after his room on the second floor. At that time, I stayed between two places, occasionally sleeping in his room in the building. My cousin only returned about 2 months later in early 2019, and informed me that he was no longer in good health, had returned to resign from his employment, intended to return to settle permanently in KwaZulu-Natal, and that I could take over his room. I then moved to and stayed in the building from 2019, where I lived alone while I retained the place at Mai for my children to stay in. Events of 31 August 2023. On 30 August 2023, I had my cousin visiting with his girlfriend. I thus vacated my room on the second floor to make way for them to sleep, and slept in another room of a friend on the fourth floor. In the early hours of 31 August 2023, I was awakened by a loud explosion that sounded like a gun. After that, I heard screams of people screaming that the building was on fire. I woke up, opened the window to check, and smelled what felt like burning tires or plastic. I dashed to my room on the second floor to check on my cousin. On my way there was a commotion in the corridors. The screams were ongoing, and the building filled with smoke. There was a locked gate on the second floor which blocked my path. Those on the other end of the gate were striking it with objects, trying to open it and escape. As I had no shoes on, realizing the building was on fire, I returned to the fourth floor to wear shoes, tried but could not return to the second floor, and eventually exited the building through the stairs that were not commonly used and came out onto Albert Street. The smoke had become so thick that I could only hear screams but not see others using the staircase. I searched for my cousin and found out that he had just gone back into the building to look for me. As I was considering a way in to search for him, I realized that the second floor was now engulfed in flames and saw my cousin coming out at that very moment. While outside, I noticed a woman on the third floor holding a baby. She threw the baby to those standing on mattresses, and the crowd caught the baby. The lady jumped, fell on the ground, and broke her leg. At that point, we removed her from the mattress, and the blaze had grown, and people were screaming from inside the building. Another woman on the fourth floor sought to jump, and despite discouragement from those on the ground not to jump, she did and dropped on the ground, dying instantly. Bodies of the dead were piling. Others were breaking limbs from jumping off the higher floors of the building, as I could not handle what I was seeing. I left the scene and found myself walking the streets of the town until I reached Gandhi Square before I returned to the scene. On my return, I found more bodies lying everywhere. Firefighters were not there before I left the scene, but on my return, I found them and battling the fire and rescuing people. In my opinion, the firefighters took a long time to respond. A lot of damage occurred before they arrived. The building was later barricaded. Once more, I left the scene and walked the town streets until about 400 hours. When I returned to the scene and learned that people had been taken to a shelter, I was first taken to Bess Valley, Bezaden Road, and then I went to Wembley Shelter in Terfontaine, where I currently reside. I lost my ID in the fire. Officials from the Home Affairs Department came to assist us with IDs, but no feedback has been received. I trust that we will be helped with issuing new ID books to help us access work and other opportunities. I feel the government must do something about these condemned buildings. What I saw on the day should not recur or be seen by a human. Signed by the deponent and properly commissioned. Chairperson, if there is no objection, may this statement be admitted into evidence as witness statement number 4, WS4.
W4 being the witness statement of Muzungubane is admitted into evidence.
Thank you. Chair, we will see the next document and a witness statement that we will be dealing with now is that of Pumlani Mketho, Mketho. She says, I'm an adult male, it's a male then, South African citizen originally from Tata, Eastern Cape Province. I started residing at Usindiso building located at number 80 Albert Street, corner Delva Street, Marshalltown, Johannesburg. Around March 2019, I currently reside at a temporary shelter at Wembley. It was during 2019 and approximately March of that year when we met with a gentleman who we were made to believe is a ward councillor who said he could help us with accommodation, but you are not to say that he did. At the time, the building was occupied by men and women, victims of abuse. The building was secured by members of the Metropolitan Police who would prevent men from entering the building. After a little while, we were then allowed to enter the building as residents. I was one of those who occupied the third floor of the building. At that time, the third floor was locked with a buckler gate, which was later removed. Still during 2019, I and others went to live on the rooftop of the building. The third floor of the building was divided into various rooms through shack-like dwellings. We organized some money and engaged and then it's not intelligible, Emakoseni on the southern side of the building. I used that side to get out of the building. I did not see people jumping off the building. There were people who I got to know better over the period who I later learned had died. There was a lady who lived with her young daughter. There was also a young lady with 2 young children. I'm told she and the children were bent beyond recognition. People from the Department of Home Affairs came to see us at the temporary shelter and promised to assist us with getting our identity documents. We are still waiting from them to assist us. The statement is signed by the deponent and duly commissioned. If no objection is there, Chairperson, may it be admitted into evidence?
Witness exhibit number W5 being the witness statement of Pumlani Mketho is admitted into evidence.
Thank you, Chairperson. Apparently there's a page 4 that I did not have. Exhibit WS5 must also include the following. I'll come to correct it.
It jumps from paragraph 4 to paragraph 9
Yes.
from what we have currently?
Chairperson, once that comes to hand, I will read the missing page. But in the meantime, maybe I introduce us to the next witness statement, that of Roberto Machavane, Machavane. I'm a major male bearing ID number that is given there. I'm a Mozambican by birth. I provide this statement to account for my experience of the fire that engulfed the Usindiso building, Albert Street, corner Delvas, Johannesburg, on 31 August 2023. I arrived in South Africa in 1989 and stayed in Mufulira, Soweto. I heard about the building from my former employer and a colleague who worked with me in the roofing business. I moved into the building during the winter of 2023 and lived in a room on the ground floor with my employer, who found jobs for us. My former employer paid the rent. I do not know to whom or how much rent was paid for the room. As of 31 August 2023, my former employer had since relocated back to Lesotho, his country of birth. I spent a lot of time out of the building looking for temporary jobs and would return late, so I cannot comment about the state of the building. However, I can state that the ground floor was an open space with shacks erected and built of cupboards. I'm currently self-employed and still involved in the roofing business. On 31 August 2023, I was sleeping when I heard people screaming that the building was on fire. I jumped out of bed, and when I stepped outside, I noticed a considerable blaze which had come very close to the door of my room. I realized that to exit the building and escape to safety, I had to run straight through the fire, which I managed and joined those standing outside. As I stood outside, I started feeling like water was on my head. Then I realized that my scalp was burnt when I ran through the fire. I had to take myself to Hillbrow Hospital as the ambulances were attending to critical patients. I was hospitalized for 1 day. Then I went to Usindiso, and then later I and others were taken to Wembley Shelter, where I'm currently residing. I lost most of my belongings in the fire, including my identity documents. Too many people live in the shelter, which is like a hostel. Despite being discharged, I'm not in good health. We are not treated well at the shelter. It is overcrowded. Residents only get 1 spoon of food, and I'm currently on medication. We are not allowed to cook. We are only allowed to eat the meals provided. It is signed by the deponent and duly commissioned, and unless there's an objection, Chairperson, may this be admitted into evidence as WS6.
Exhibit W6, being the witness statement of Roberto Machavane, is admitted into evidence.
Thank you. The next document we have, Chair, is that of Sipiwe Ngobo. I'm a major male bearing ID number that it's given. I hail from Nongoma, KwaZulu-Natal. I provide the statement to account for my experience of the fire that engulfed the Usindiso building, Albert Street, corner Delvas, Johannesburg, on 31 August 2023. I moved into a room in the building on the 2nd floor in 2019. The room used to belong to a lady I was familiar with. She decided to return to Pietermaritzburg. She offered the room to me for 5,000 rand, which I paid and moved in. The room was bordered by brick and mortar walls, 1 wooden door, and windows facing Albert Street. I resided with my partner and 3 children, Ndumiso Nkosi, 20-year-old, Akule, 5-year-old, and Bandile, a 2-year-old. My room accommodated 1 bed, which I shared with my partner, my children, Akule and Bandile, a sponge used by my eldest child, Ndumiso, for sleeping, a 1-plate stove, a fridge, a 1 cupboard with 2 doors and 2 shelves, and a TV, The size of the room was small, such that it could not accommodate another mattress, for instance. The building seemed to obtain electricity from the same source supplying adjacent Marshall buildings. I say so because our building was off when there was no supply in the Marshall building. I did not pay for prepaid electricity. My room had an illegal connection to electricity supply. I received water from a fire extinguisher hose nearby. I was not paying rent to anyone. I'm aware that some occupants paid rent for their rooms to others. I do not know who the landlords collecting rent are. During my stay in the building, I was a vendor selling food and cigarettes at a spaza. My spaza shop was erected using corrugated iron sheets against the wall of what we called the shelter and was facing Albert Street. My spaza was located on the ground floor between the walls separating the open section of the ground floor that was occupied by those who were affected by the fire and the adjoining clinic. Events of 31 August 2023, on 31 August 2023 around 0100 hours, I was still manning my spaza, trying to sell leftover food. My fridge is small and cannot accommodate leftover food. So I stayed up until I have traded as much of the available stock as possible. I had left my partner with Akule and Bandile in the room. Ndumesa was not in the room because he was visiting and sleeping at his uncle's house. The building had not had an electricity supply for the 2 preceding days. I was in the company of 2 Tanzanian nationals who had made a fire in a brazier beside my shop to cook food. At first, I heard noises of people I thought could have been involved in a fight coming from the clinic part of the building. I immediately asked the Tanzanian nationals to remove the brazier from the pathway in case the same people came out onto the pathway. I then heard shouts that the building was on fire, after which I ran towards the entrance on Delver Street to rescue my partner, and still, I could not get any further than the first floor because people were rushing down the opposite direction, carrying personal items like mattresses, etc. The smell of smoke was getting stronger, and there was a stampede with people trampling on others. I returned outside to see if I could find another entrance into the building. I could not gain access because it was very dark. Smoke was everywhere and was blocked by others. I cannot recall when the firefighters arrived, but they did not take long to respond. It is only that the fire was strong and spread very fast. I approached one of the firefighters with a request to fight the fire from where I could access my room. As he was contemplating my request, he was called by his colleagues to fight the fire that was seemingly intensifying. I walked around the building to gain access through an entrance that would usually be opened and found it locked. There was chaos and confusion in and around the building. I stood outside the building and tried to call for my partner to get him to at least throw the children from upstairs to the roadside, the same way as others were rescuing children thrown from upstairs by catching them downstairs. I failed. I came across someone who informed me that my 5-year-old Akule was in an ambulance. I managed to locate her. She was gasping, struggling to breathe, filled with foam in the mouth. I continued to search for the 2-year-old Bandile and my partner. I eventually found my partner without Bandile. My partner was a little dizzy, with bends on his feet and legs, and told me someone told him to leave the child behind. I eventually came across my brother, who also lived in the building, informing him that Bandile was not accounted for. After that, despite protestations from the firefighters, he forced his way into the building through a door that the firefighters had since opened. As I stood outside, I could see my room engulfed in flames. My brother subsequently came out carrying Bandile in his hands. His temperature was high, and face was covered with soot. My brother took him to the ambulance. After several attempts to resuscitate her, The paramedics eventually put the child aside and informed me that the child had passed. In 30 minutes, many lives were lost and injuries incurred. People were jumping from the building upstairs, while some stood on the mattresses outside the building to catch those jumping. Some jumped and broke some limbs, while others lost their lives. Numerous people were saved by the firefighters, truck with a ladder. I and most others spent that whole day in the street and were taken to a shelter the next day at 8 p.m. I'm currently staying at a shelter called Hofland Park in the Zadenhout Valley. Akule was admitted in hospital and released the following day, signed by the deponent and properly commissioned. If no objection is there, Chair, may this be admitted into evidence as WS7
Exhibit W7, being the witness statement of Siphiwe Ngcobo, is admitted into evidence.
Yes. Chair, at an appropriate stage, I'll find the page 4 missing. I still don't have it yet. Those are the witness statements we intended to present. For now and for the record, Chair, I just need, for consistency, to do this. You would recall that we had the documents relating to the deceased, those identified and those unidentified, but for serializing them and giving them corresponding exhibit numbers, you would have, of those who are identified, what we used to call as profile number. It would be body number 2775, which must now bear a corresponding exhibit number PRI1. To that also will be a body number 2811, and a corresponding exhibit number will be PRI2. So too, a body number 2762 will have a corresponding exhibit number PRI3. Body number 2787 with a corresponding exhibit number PR4. Body number 2797 with a corresponding exhibit number PR5. That of body 2792 must bear the corresponding exhibit number PR6. That of body number 2794 must bear a corresponding exhibit number PR7. That of body 2754 must bear a corresponding exhibit number PR8. 2796 body number with a corresponding exhibit number PR9. That of body 2783 with a corresponding exhibit number PR10. The following body number 2758 shall bear exhibit number PR11. That of 2780 bear corresponding exhibit number PR12, and that of body 2868 with a corresponding exhibit number PR13. Number body 2795 must bear a corresponding exhibit number PR14. That of 2760 with corresponding exhibit number PR15. That of body 2834 with a corresponding exhibit number 16, and that of 2757 bearing exhibit number PR17. That of body 2801 with a corresponding exhibit number PR18. Those would be accounting for the serialized documents that go under their respective exhibits, and it refers to the identified deceased. May those be admitted into evidence so corrected.
The amended exhibits are admitted into evidence.
Thank you, Chairperson. Now, going to those who were unidentified, I do the same. That of body 2766 will have a corresponding exhibit number PRU1. Body 2756 would have exhibit number PRU2. That of body 2759, exhibit PRU3. That of body 2767 will have exhibit number PRU4. That of body 2768, number PRU5. PRU6 will relate to the body 2777. PRU7 will belong to the body 2778 as an exhibit. PRU exhibit will correspond with body 2782, and body number PRU9 exhibit will be for body 2815. PRU10 will correspond with body number 2753, and 2764 will go to body exhibit PRU11. Those will account for the unidentified bodies, and absent an objection, we request that those be amended accordingly on the record.
The exhibits as emendated are admitted into evidence.
Chairperson, those are what we have for now and for the day. And would like to take this opportunity to announce that the commission will be going on an official in-loco inspection, i.e. going to see the site of the fire and do the formal recordal of what the commission observes on Thursday. That will happen leaving this venue at 12:30 on Thursday. That is the business of the day, Chair.
Thank you. These proceedings are adjourned until tomorrow.
Oh, sorry, Chair. I did not also announce that we will not be sitting tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yes.
So these proceedings are adjourned until Thursday at 12:30. No, we will not be having proceedings on Thursday.
But we'll assemble here for our trip to the site.
These
for the inspection.
proceedings stand adjourned. Thank you.